Hi everyone. I know it's very early, pretty early still, and but as always, I always look forward to column because it's an important fixture on my both professional and personal calendars for the last decade. So today we are doing this interesting session, what I would say women's empowerment through the lens of epics. We have two very accomplished ladies with us, Sangeeta and Koral, and we will start with a short discussion of their books so that you have a context. So, Koral has chosen to write about Tara, who's one of the Panchakanyas, who, as you know, I mean, she's written on all the Panchakanyas, including Ahalya, Draupadi, Kunti, Tara, and Mandodari. And Tara is very fascinating because she was married to Bali, and then she was subsequently, after his death, got married off to his twin, Sugriv, and which is a very interesting juncture of history, I would say, and how she navigated the power play through a mixture of intelligence, empathy, desire, and carnality, and yet history. So it's a really interesting position for her. Similarly, Sangeeta has chosen this epic tale called Devadasi, which is between a sort of playoff between Palaka, who's a king and who basically represents the masculine and the patriarchy, and Kalyani, who's the female protagonist, who represents abundance and creativity and defiance to, again, navigate her way into the kingdom, the dynasty, destiny of women. And so I just found it very interesting. And also, I must say that her tale has shades of Antigone and Creon. The playoff between the king and the rebel. Except, if I may say, it had a happy ending. It has a happy ending. So, but what fascinated me was that both of you chose to dwell on the lens of an epic. So, so why was that? I'll start with you, Koral. Why did you decide to focus on the tale of Panchakanyas and Tara, who's relatively lesser known? But till I read your book, I really did not know how fascinating her story was. So why Tara and why Panchakanya?
So when I thought about writing Panchakanya is a term that has been mentioned in the ancient scriptures. It is not a term that I have coined. And they have mentioned that Ahalya, Kunti, Draupadi, Mandodari, Tara, if you understand their stories, if you pray to them, your sins get dispelled. And that is where it appeared to me that you may not know enough about Ahalya, Mandodari, Tara, but you know about Kunti and Draupadi. And we are saying that these are Panchkanyas. Kanya is virgin. So you are saying that they are Panchkanyas and Mahasatis. Sati means pure. So you are saying that Kunti and Draupadi, who have had multiple partners, in fact all five have had multiple partners, are Mahasatis. I mean, for ages we have heard that women's purity is about the body. Why is the holy narratives are saying something else? I mean, that's what fascinated me first, that probably purity in our ancient narratives are not talking about the body, it's talking about something bigger. And when I started studying, I understood that definitely it is not about body. It is talking about your refusal to be touched, or the simple fact that you cannot be touched until you will to be touched. You know, for example, right now there are so many people who say kindness doesn't work any longer. Are you touched by it? If you are touched by it, you will work like that. You will start being rude because kindness doesn't work. If you refuse to be touched by that, you will continue to be kind. It is just that touch which makes us sati. And second thing, it is not gender specific. The narratives of the Ramayana and Mahabharata, they have probably used men and women as metaphors for a lot of things, But these tales, the truth, the philosophy, the metaphors, the meanings, they are not gender specific. What happens with a man there might happen to a woman. A woman's trouble might happen in a man's world. So that's what fascinated me, and I just approached a few publishers. PanMax said yes, and we went ahead. Tara was the last one in that sloka, and Tara talks about human-animal politics and human-animal friendship. And I do believe, with whatever little research understanding I have, that ancient epics are talking about only one rule of the living world, just one. That one, when one falls weak, when one is falling, the others take over. That is the only rule. The Ramayana specifically, you see, it is talking about the collaboration between different life forms for a successful coexistence. What happened? So that is how Tara happened.
So here's a book with a lovely cover, and you can, choose to get it. It's a fascinating read. I didn't know so much about Tara. So here it is. Now let me turn to Sangeeta. Sangeeta has a very fascinating background. She's been an ambassador, and and done many things, and has also written this book. This book is fascinating, as I said, that it navigates the power play between patriarchy and feminine energy, and again, Creon, Antigone taking on power structures, taking on caste, all kinds of barriers. And yet, the female protagonist, after many horrible things, if I may say, actually emerges victorious. It's a fascinating tale again. So what made you choose this? Avanti, Palaka, and Kalyani.
It's a fascinating story in itself. Somebody told me, this is not my first book. I already have a whole series out of 4 books called Kal. I'm a fantasy author, an unashamed one. So for me to consider doing something very realistic or, based on this, it's not something that really inspires me at all. So I was sure that even after this, I want to do something which is related to fantasy in a certain way. So then the idea was, now that I've created this huge 4-book epic world called Kal, what do I do next? So somebody suggested at that point of time, why don't you write a story, about a modern Devadasi? And they wanted me to show the exploitation and, how these poor women suffer because of, the way the chauvinistic social structure treats them. But when I started writing, I said, why do I want to go into that kind of negativity? I wanted to portray the Devadasi system, which is an ancient one, as all of you know, in the actual light in which it was supposed to be made, right? Because initially the idea was not that the woman was to be exploited. She was dedicated to the gods, and she retained full control of her life, of her body, of herself, of her beliefs, so that whatever she needed to do, she did, right? She even had the power to choose her lovers. So I thought, why not bring that into play? And then when I started thinking about it, I thought, historical fantasy maybe, alternative history, whatever it is. And then I stumbled upon this, this dynasty called the Pradyot dynasty, which is not very well known, although it had 5 kings or 6 maybe. Yeah, 6 I think. And they ruled Avanti, which is the present Madhya Pradesh, in around 6th, 5th century BCE. So when I started reading about that dynasty, I said, not so much is known about them that people will start standing up and saying, oh, this is not right, oh, that is not right. So I just picked them up, and this, the king Palak, he is the second king, he was the second king of the dynasty. So along with him, I also included a whole lot of other historical characters. But the idea was alternative history, right? So then I came up with the Kalyani character, who will really surprise you at the end with what she actually proves to be. And this Palak, I made him into a kind of a misogynist, a very chauvinistic individual. He has a lot of reasons for being that way, but the fact is that that's how it is. So he has imposed so many terms and conditions on the existence of women in his kingdom that the whole kingdom, the whole system has come to a standstill. He doesn't understand why the creativity has dried up, why the land is going barren, while people and animals are unable to do anything much with their lives. Many have stopped reproducing. So he is like, after a series of disasters, he is told to, marry this woman whom he doesn't know from Eve. But she turns out to be this really beautiful, amazingly sexy and sensuous creature whom he meets in a temple. She calls herself a Devadasi, who serves the goddess, not any of the other gods. And after a lot of persuasion, she says, I'm not meant for marriage, that's not supposed to be my destiny in life, etc. But he somehow persuades her. She marries him under various conditions, which he has to fulfill. Otherwise, like Ganga, this was an inspiration from the Ganga story. She says, the moment you say no or you question me, I'm walking out of here, and that's it. So as a result, knowing that she is the future of his kingdom's welfare lies in her hands, so he can't do anything. So as a result, she just, in a very bindas way, she does exactly what she pleases. She teaches him bit by bit the idea that women are not from some other planet. They're also human beings. They have as much right to their way of thinking, their bodies, their souls, their beliefs, as a man does. So to impose restrictions on a woman is basically shackling the whole society, because she's the one who births the next generation, raises them, teaches them the right values, etc. So if you're going to shackle her like that, nothing's going to happen, So over a period of 1 year, that's all the entire time of the story. In that 1 year, Palak turns from a totally dyed-in-the-wool misogynist into a very liberal man who, towards the end, when she asks him to do something which he thinks is not right for the women, he actually says no. And that's when she walks out of his life. So as Paroma was saying, yes, it's true that it has a happy ending, but a very different kind of a happy ending. It's a kind of acceptance, a realization on his part, and he figures out who she really was, this lady he had so, impulsively married. So the entire thing came from there, and Palak was, as I said, because he's not so well known, and therefore I was less scared of people saying, but he didn't do that. Oh, but he didn't. So that's how it worked out.
So again, here's the book. If any of you want, you can actually read the story for yourself. What is tragic about this is that both are in some way tales of emancipation and empowerment. And it's still applicable to our present-day society. Because just imagine, particularly some parts of India, how badly women are still shackled, how unable to take decisions for themselves, their minds, bodies, sexuality, everything. Right? So it's as applicable as ever, which is not a very positive thing, but it's a fact. So, we are always sort of brushing our epics or earlier tales aside, saying that we have progressed. So that is what I want to ask both of you. That do you think we have really progressed? And when it comes to women's issues especially, because so many things that you are saying, I found Tara's navigation between the two brothers absolutely fascinating. Because somewhere she coaxes, cajoles, uses her sexuality, yet deeply intelligent and empathetic, and explores the animal-human friendship. So how relevant it is today, and what lessons can we take? I'll start with her and come to you.
Lessons, there are too many, Paroma, but we chose, literature is subject to interpretation, and at different stages of centuries, depending upon where our society has reached, they have interpreted in a way that suits the narrative and the goals are obtained. So there was a time which was deeply patriarchal. So they explained the characters and their advances and their activities in a particular way. Then there was a feminist era. They again said something else. I think at this time we are open to understand that what happened. I mean, with everything said and done, we know that we have messed up big time. And that is because we are very, very unhappy within. You know, and that is the reason probably in most of Indian households, we are often given those examples from Ramayana and Mahabharata. Arjun did this, Bhishma did this, Rama did this. You should learn from what happened to Sita. You should learn from what happened to Surpanaka. Constantly, you know. And now probably I am sitting here without being killed is probably because there is an audience which is open to explore the deeper meanings, because I have for sure made some inroads which probably a lot of us were not expecting. When I wrote Draupadi, I explained Krishna as the Antaratma, the inner wisdom. When you explain Krishna as the Antaratma, he doesn't remain the male god who was rescuing a woman.
Exactly. Yeah.
He is the inner wisdom of the woman who came and gave her certain powers, and she did whatever she had to. So, similarly here in Tara, between Bali and Sugriv, we have always, I mean, I was discussing this with Sangeeta this morning. We have always been told that Bali is the greatest villain. And I always had this issue in my head that, okay, whoever Bali is, why did Ram have to kill from behind? Yes. Of course, there are narratives which explain that, okay, if Bali is killed from front, I mean, combated from front, his powers will increase manifold. Those are not Balmiki
Ramayana. He had a boon from Shiva,
that is not
that you can't get.
Yeah, those are all alternate narratives which has been used to explain, to defend Ram.
Action. Yes.
But whatever be it, somewhere inside your brain, I mean, you feel God as someone who is capable of doing certain things, which is bigger, more kinder, more giving, more forgiving. Then why would God do something like this? This was my biggest issue with Ramayana, that why was Bali killed like that? So when I look at Bali and Sugriv's story, and I have grown up hearing that Bali was the villain and Sugriv was the one who was the good one. And there are many dramatic translations and theatrical performances where Bali is the villain. Now when I look at this story, in my Tara, Bali is the hero and Sugriv is not the villain. They are just two beings with two alternate ideologies, two alternate ways of looking at the world. And I try to understand the animal world, how it operates. And probably you understand where I come from. Right now, we are in a situation where anybody with a different ideology is the villain. Anybody with a different school of thought is to be run down. Now, I see Bali as that being who is the son of the wild, who believes in animal superiority, who believes in animal wisdom, who loves being an animal. He knows what are his strengths as an animal. And Sugriv was the one who was waiting to be tamed by the human because he believed in human superiority. And that is the conflict, that Tara is somewhere here, somewhere there.
She's navigating it
yes,
very,
because
very skillfully.
She understands that nobody is completely wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that is the story.
Yeah. And yes, I mean, Ram, I mean, even a tale which is better known is his killing, Lakshman's killing of Indrajit, which is equally wrong, if I may say so, because it was what we say Onnai Juddha. It's a battle which was not justifiable because he was killed by trickery. So it's interesting that how this extreme ideological positions you try to renegotiate. And similarly, with you, Sangeeta, is that you have these, very defined power structures, even now, even today. The male power structure, the caste power structure, the class power structure. And in a sense, you tackle all of these in your book.
Yes.
But what is fascinating to me is that all of these are as applicable today as it was centuries ago. Yeah. Maybe not across, but in certainly some parts of India and the world. So that also I find very interesting, that universality of your narrative.
Totally. In fact, that was the idea. Most of the situations that you'll find in the book, which Kalyani negotiates with such skill and aplomb, she doesn't give a damn what anybody else thinks, and she does exactly what she pleases. But the fact is that all those incidents are definitely, as you say, inspired by things that are still happening in this world, you know. So, in fact, one of the things that Koral just said in her introductory remark about the fact of purity in women being associated with their physical virginity, that really struck a bell with me, because that's one of the points I've brought up. Just to give you a little peep into the narrative, when they get married, Palak and Kalyani, on their wedding night, Palak discovers that she is not a virgin. And he says, you know, spoiled goods, and why didn't you tell me? And how can you claim to be, you know, dedicated to a goddess? How does she permit you to be there? You are not pure. And she says two things to him. She says, one, my goddess knows what she's doing. And if she thought I was not pure, she would not permit me within, you know, kilometers of her temple. Second, the association between physical purity and actual purity, is it typical only for women? What about you? Were you a virgin when you came to a marriage bed? So these issues still exist to a very large extent, and you're right, Paroma, that, you know, they maybe not in all parts of society, but there's certainly places, there are certainly social structures which really still deny women their right to an equal life. Like, starting from the fact that even today, a lot of families will say, we don't want a woman who works, you know, or we don't want somebody who's that educated, because, you know, she'll bring friction into the family and she'll do this. Now, for me, when I was growing up, for example, in college in Mumbai, many of my friends were, you know, after we finished our graduation and all that, some of them were already getting married. I got married very late, but that's another story. But and many of them would actually very proudly tell me, okay, I'm actually considering this guy because his parents don't have an objection to my working. And I'm like, what the hell? Who the hell are they to object to your working? It has to be your decision. You want to be a stay-at-home mom? Most welcome, full respect. But the thing is, it has to be your decision. You can't have obtained a medical degree or an engineering degree and then sitting at home just because your in-laws do not want you to work. They think it's some kind of a slight or some kind of a reflection on their social status, whatever it is. Then, you know, similarly, you have to marry who we choose for you. If you stray even a little bit, it's okay for a man, he'll be forgiven, but you're a woman. So, you know, there was this lovely Bengali film, I think, again called After You, Paroma, where it was, you know, that same issue. So you really realize that a lot of these things are, I was inspired by things that are happening around us, and I sort of superimpose them on this historical setup and this, you know, particular kind of misogyny that Palak perpetrates in his rule. But the only thing I can say that we are making an effort. The fact that so many of you are sitting here and listening to a discussion on women's empowerment, that itself proves, and those of you who pick up our books, you'll be helping even more. So I just wanted to conclude by saying that we are taking, maybe they're baby steps, but things are happening. There are certain social, you know, sections of in our country which are changing, who are sort of, you know, going out of the way to embrace fresh ideas, new ideas. I'm not talking about militant feminism. That's never been my way. I love being a woman. I love being different from men. But the fact is that, you know, if you accept those differences and let the woman grow the way she's naturally meant to be, that is true equality according to me. And I think we are sort of, little by little beginning to move in that direction. It will take maybe another 50 years, 100 years, I don't know how long. But I hope that by the time my children grow old and their children are young, things will have changed.
That's a good note. By the way, in that year when Paroma came out, my friends started calling me Adulteress 82 or something like that. So it had a lot of impact, and I still, till this day, I love that film. And I would also like to end on a positive note before we have only time for 2-3 questions. And but I think there are some deeply disturbing aspects still. The rape narratives that we see. the rape and molestation. I'm not going to call out individual cases, you all know. And how systems and societal norms and politics conspire to twist it and hide it. Caste violence against women specifically. And so everything is not hunky-dory, quite far from it. But I agree that we have made some progress. We'll continue to make progress. And I hope we have many more discussions like this in many forums so that, we can all take the dialogue forward. And men are not enemies. I mean, most of my good friends actually happen to be men. But we have to take it forward. Any one quick line closing comment you have? Before we can take 2 questions, so if anybody has one, we would love. Yeah, I'll just come to you. You have anything as a closing comment?
You just spoke about the molestation narratives and rape narratives. Of course, in the epics, the biggest molestation narrative is that of Draupadi. And I really found that story fascinating because Draupadi never believed that she was molested. She believed that the Hastinapur court was molested. It was the molestation of law and order. We can take that learning, right? It doesn't take too much. It's just our willingness to go against the society and begin a new norm where we shame the law and order, the politicians, the administration, and everybody who did not come forward and because of whom a woman was wronged. Stop blaming the woman. Please stop blaming the woman. Blame those who did not do their job right. We can do that at an individual level and we become a society of our own.
Thank you. Over to you, ma'am.
For a wonderful session. And I was reminded the more things change, the more things remain the same. But we are taking baby steps. And I'm glad you ended saying, stop blaming the women, start blaming the administration and the people responsible. You said something very perceptive with reference to the Ramayana, that it teaches us that when the weak fall down, the strong step in. Because Paroma began with a comparison with Antigone. I don't know, maybe you would like to, this is more of a comment. You could look up Thucydides, another Greek historian, and he says, the gods have taught us that the strong always steps on the weak. It will happen. So time for the women to become strong themselves. I think we have to take responsibility for our own security now. That's all. Thank you so much.
I just wanted to add one little thing, like taking on from what you said and what that lady in the audience said. What we find is that, for every 2 steps forward, society always takes 1 step back. So, like even in this book, at the end, Kalyani gets Palak to agree to set up the Devadasi system, not for anything else, but to keep reminding people that a woman is an individual. She can make her own choices. So she tells him that, this is the only way to keep your kingdom prosperous, happy, creative, productive, everything. Do it. So he does, because he knows what it's been like before that. And the next couple of generations also sort of follow, the policy. But the one after that, when they come, that's when the corruption starts. And they stop thinking of the Devadasi as, this semi-divine creature who's dedicated to the god who can make her own choices, her own life. And so, bit by bit, the next few generations just start regressing. And then, as we know in reality as well, when the British came, they decided that, because they could not comprehend this whole system of the Devadasi and the philosophy behind it, so they compared it to prostitution. And that's why they banned the Devadasi system, as most of you know. As a result, all the state patronage that used to go to the Devadasi stopped. And they were left with no recourse but to actually turn to prostitution just to sustain their lives, right? So then first you force them into that situation, then you start calling them prostitutes. So this has been happening to women again and again and again, because the society is still run by men, right? No matter how many of us enter administration and we try to do a little bit, but it's never enough. But my thing is, for every two steps forward, we do take 1 step back, but there's still that 1 step that has taken you a little forward. So we should never give up. Keep trying, and make sure that we as women, as individuals, and even the men, we all do something, even a little bit, to make a difference.
I'll just do one line and then we'll close. So thank you very much for being such a patient audience, and this is a topic close to all our hearts, and we will continue to have dialogues, we'll continue to have protests. But one thing, I have also spent about 35 years working across journalism and corporate sector. To be successful at any age, you have to have a very thick skin as a woman, and ability to discount hidden patriarchy, which is much more insidious than open discrimination, and so you have to have wherewithal to fight, and don't look for support. You are your best support.
We have the power.
But we have the power. Okay? Famous last words, Jasjidi. Well, you, and then we are winding this up. Okay?
You know, when we say that we have the power, of course we have, ma'am, you also said that. But I would also like to say that for ages, literature, cinema, and different kinds of creative art has introduced very weird men, and we call them heroes. One guy jumping down from the 20th floor and hitting 20 people dead is not reality. We really need to change the narrative, not for women, for men. Create the real heroes. Understand the men who are the heroes. In my Sati series, I think the reason why this book series has done well is because we see Pandu and Bhishma and Arjun in new light. And they are not the powerful guys, where power is interpreted as domination and cruelty and indifference and anything like that. Those are the sensitive guys. Sensitivity of women, sensitivity of men, and kindness of men, and coming together to build it up together, to share the load. That is the only way where we coexist, share, and build a happy society. Only women will not be able to do that. We need to change the narrative for the men and tell the entire audience who is a hero. That guy was never a hero.
Here's to good men and women. Cheers.
Thanks.